Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone. Today I will talk about a movie where the main character will decide whether to choose breast implants and a rich guy or leave her own breasts and go on a date with a gym teacher. For your attention is a comedy of 2011, Bad Teacher.
But it's mandatory.
Ooh.
End of the school year. At school, the staff say goodbye to one of their teachers, Elizabeth Halsey. The principal invites her to give a farewell speech. Elizabeth admits that she will miss her students, her colleagues, and the opportunity to set the right example for children. In fact, the whole school year, when Elizabeth saw a crying student or teacher celebrating a birthday, she tried to quickly leave in the other direction. After the speech, Elizabeth gets into an expensive car, takes a cigarette, yells goodbye losers out the window, and quickly leaves, nearly crashing into a school bus. Elizabeth is on her way home to start preparing for her wedding with her wealthy fiancé. At home, she says on the doorstep that she is going to have sex with her fiancé. But suddenly Elizabeth sees his mother next to him. Under pressure from his mother, the groom accuses Elizabeth that she spent as much as $16,000 in the last month. And it seems to him that she does not love him, but wants to marry only for the sake of money. His mother asks if Elizabeth even knows when her son's birthday is. When Elizabeth replies that such questions offend her, groom's mother says that his birthday is today. Elizabeth makes one last attempt to remain a bride and says that she is pregnant. But the groom does not believe her and finally breaks off relations with her. 3 months later, after the summer holidays, Elizabeth drives back to school in a cheap car. She is greeted by another teacher, Amy Squirrel, and she expresses her regret over the cancelled engagement, to which Elizabeth replies that she found her groom in bed with a man. Amy recalls that in the last school year, Elizabeth kept aloof from everyone and ignored work. But since she returned to school this year, she can try to become a real teacher. Later, Elizabeth is reading a magazine and another teacher, named Lynn, invites her to lunch. Elizabeth agrees, only because Lynn has promised to pay for the dinner. Elizabeth says she used to think being a teacher was good. Short days, summer holidays, no responsibility. But now she will devote all her time to finding a rich man who will pay for her life. Elizabeth reveals that she spent the summer in bars to meet a rich guy, but so far without success. She thinks this is because she looks like a 4, but with her new big breasts she will look like a 5. After a night at the bar, Elizabeth comes to class in the morning. She turns on the film for the children and she wraps herself in a sweater and goes to sleep. At lunch in the dining room, Russell, a gym teacher, approaches her. He invites her to have a drink together sometime, and Elizabeth replies that she does not go on dates with gym teachers. A minute later, Amy approaches Elizabeth and hints that she has to go to teachers' meetings and also watch her students who throw food and, of course, showing a movie on the first day. This is unprofessional. A young math teacher, Scott Delacourt, arrives at the school. Elizabeth notices an expensive watch on his arm and then she comes up to introduce herself and offer her help. On the question about watches, Scott replies that this brand was invented by his grandfather and that this is their family business. Then Elizabeth wonders if he and his wife moved to their city long ago. Scott replies that he is not married. He recently broke up with his girlfriend who had a big heart. He opens Elizabeth her picture, which shows that she has very large breasts. At the plastic surgery center, the doctor shows Elizabeth his nurse, whom he personally gave a large breasts. Elizabeth is delighted and says she will buy 2 once. But the operation costs $9,300 and she doesn't have that kind of money, so she promises to return to the clinic later. Elizabeth calls her father to borrow the required amount, and when he refuses, then she turns to her ex-fiancé, but he hangs up the phone. The next day, Elizabeth shows the film to the children as usual. Suddenly, one of the girls invites Elizabeth to their school's annual car wash. When the girl clarifies that they made $6,000 last year, Elizabeth instantly has a plan to raise money faster for new breasts. She goes to the principal and asks to appoint her in charge of the car wash this year, because Amy Squirrel is very busy and it is simply necessary to remove some of the duties from her. The principal agrees. Elizabeth arrives in short jeans shorts and puts on a real show at the car wash. All the school children and their fathers can't take their eyes off Elizabeth, and a policeman even accidentally crashes into a parked car. Amy Squirrel, who arrived on a bicycle, notices that Elizabeth took some of the money for herself. Amy wants to complain so badly that she can't wait another minute, so she finds the principal in the toilet and tells him her suspicions. The principal chases her away because Elizabeth did such an excellent job that the fathers of the children called and asked for a car wash not once a year, but every Sunday. While on duty at the cafeteria, Elizabeth flirts with Scott. Suddenly, Amy Squirrel comes up and, as if by chance, mentions in a conversation that Elizabeth decided to enlarge her breasts. Scott says that everyone can choose what makes them happier. At a parent-teacher meeting, people ask Elizabeth why she shows films to the kids all the time. She replies that showing films is just one of her many teaching methods. After the meeting, one boy's father secretly gives Elizabeth $100 for stationery and asks Elizabeth to be a little more attentive of his son. Elizabeth understands that this is another source of income, and she begins to approach each parent in turn and promises to do more with their children, mentioning that it will take time, and she also has a small salary, collecting for breast increase in all ways. Elizabeth even sells out cans, plus clothes from the forgotten and lost department. Meanwhile, Amy Squirrel gives Scott the book Eat, Pray, Love, and he says it's his favorite book. The evening of the school disco comes. Russell approaches Elizabeth and offers to smoke a weed in the gym. Elizabeth is not here for that. She refuses and goes to dance with Scott and sing the chorus together, which sounds like 865309. Remember my number. Scott regrets that nobody makes songs like this anymore, but Russell replies that he is in the process of writing a song called 855824177 plus 3 sevens. Scott doesn't get the joke. He confesses to Elizabeth that he likes Amy Squirrel. Elizabeth is upset and, as if in secret, admits that Amy is a lesbian. Elizabeth then returns to Russell and agrees to smoke with him. Lying on the mats, Russell says that he arranged everything in the gym himself. He hung basketball baskets, laid a solid wooden floor, and there were no championship ribbons here at all. When he arrived, they hung in another place, and he found a place for it here. Russell again offers to go on a date, but again Elizabeth refuses. Elizabeth later learns from Lynn that the class teacher with the highest score in the exam will receive a $5,700 bonus. Then Elizabeth becomes a strict teacher and begins to force the children to read a book a day, and she conducts polls every lesson. Sometimes polls are held in the gym. If the school child answers incorrectly, Elizabeth throws the ball at him, and if he is correct, then the school child can throw the ball at Elizabeth. Before one of these throws, Russell enters the gym and reminds the student that it is better not to throw at Elizabeth, but like through her. Then the hit will be stronger. After a couple of days, Elizabeth realizes that it is too late to study honestly. Then she learns that a certain Carl Hull, an employee of the Ministry of Education, is developing exam tests and answers to them. She makes an appointment with him, pretending to be a journalist. She seduces Carl and offers to have sex in his office. There, Elizabeth slips sleeping pills into his wine and copies the exam answers. A month later, Elizabeth's class receives the highest score and she is given a bonus. Amy Squirrel, who has received this award in previous years, is jealous and therefore defiantly boasts to Elizabeth that she is dating Scott and that they are going to accompany the school trip together this weekend. Then Elizabeth rubs a poisonous plant on apples in Amy's class, who after one such apple develops a severe rash on her face. Thus, Elizabeth is sent to accompany the tour. Next night at a motel, she seduces Scott and discreetly calls Amy from his phone. Elizabeth comes out disappointed because, at Scott's insistence, they only fake sex without taking off their clothes. In the morning, one boy decides to confess his love to a classmate and, of course, everyone laughs at him. Then Elizabeth finds the upset boy, calms him down and gives him her bra, and then when she returns, she loudly declares that she caught the boy with an 8th grader girl who masturbated to him. So the boy who shows the bra, classmates begin to respect again. Russell, who has noticed that Elizabeth is not wearing a bra, approaches her and tells that she did a nice thing. Meanwhile, at school, Amy Squirrel swaps her desk and Elizabeth's one, breaks open a drawer and sees copies of exam answers in there. Then she finds Carl, intimidates him and forces him to confess that he knows Elizabeth. Amy convinces Carl to testify against Elizabeth and then notifies the principal of the rigging. Amy gloats and threatens Elizabeth with a total checking. Elizabeth then sends her neighbor to Carl to hand over the incriminating photographs she took that night. The next morning, Carl claims that he was mistaken and that he never saw Elizabeth in his life. Frustrated Amy Squirrel, knowing that Elizabeth smokes weed, invites the police to the school to find drugs. The dog does find drugs, but in Amy's office, because she never returned Elizabeth's desk back. After that, Amy is sent as a teacher to the worst school in the district. Scott suggests Elizabeth start over, but she tells him to leave her. Elizabeth comes to the gym to Russell and asks to sign the album. Russell says he'll also write his phone number in case Elizabeth needs a ride after surgery, or needs a pair of hands to check on the quality of her breast implants. Elizabeth smiles and kisses Russell. 3 months later, Elizabeth returns to school. She tells Lynn that she has decided not to enlarge her breasts yet. She also met a good guy. Thank you for watching. If you wanted such a teacher as a child, be sure to subscribe. If you want another teacher, write in the comments which one.